Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time allocation, but one final question. If you could tell us what the telltale signs are for someone who might attempt suicide and is very serious about attempting suicide, for lay people, for family members, for friends who are out there, if you could just briefly tell them what to look out for.
One common thing is that they will tell somebody that I feel like killing myself. Okay, that is one important thing. And they say they are hopeless, they are helpless, their life is worthless living. In most occasions, more than 80% of occasions, they tell somebody that I want to kill myself, I am fed up of my life.
And this is statistically proven, this
yes,
they tell?
Yes,
okay.
They tell it. In most occasions, people believe that people who tell that I want to kill will not kill themselves. That is the common belief, that is a myth. People who tell the others that I want to kill themselves, kill themselves. Therefore, if somebody says that I want to kill myself, take it serious and to seek for the treatment. Okay, that is the most important mark for the general population. Okay, but for medical people, the psychiatrists, we have a specific method of assessing suicide risk and specific treatment methods for those things.
I see. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today. You really gave us we didn't have so much time to really delve into the topic, but you really gave us an overview of what to look out for and what the psychological background to suicide is. So thank you so much. And when we come back, we will hear a sociological outlook to suicide. So see you on the other side. Welcome back to GMSL, and just before the break we were talking to Dr. Harish Chandra about a very pertinent topic that's been on the news throughout the past few weeks, and that is suicide. And today, right now, I have a guest with me who is going to give us a different perspective on this topic, and that is a sociological perspective to suicide. I have with me Ms. Tarindri Udalagama, who is a first-class honours graduate in sociology from the University of Colombo and is currently a lecturer at the same university. She is also a research fellow with biomedical and health experimentation in South Asia, where one of her research topics is suicide in rural areas in Sri Lanka. So, Ms. Tarindri, thank you so much for joining us on GMSL today. If you could give us a background to the sociological aspect of suicide in Sri Lanka.
Right, thank you for having me here.
Yes.
And to explain a bit about suicide in a sociological way, I would strongly probably disagree with most of the psychiatrists around the country, because I and myself as well as a lot of other colleagues of mine would view the problem or the social issue of suicide as a social issue. I mean, it's more to do with social causes.
If you could clarify that, because what psychiatrists say is that one of the biggest causal factors is depression. If you have a mental disorder, then you're more likely to commit suicide. So what is the difference from sociology and psychology?
Yes, from the studies that have been conducted so far, we would say that it's more towards the social factors that gives a stressful environment for the individual.
For example,
rather than, for example, life opportunities. Poverty, and also love affairs, especially among young adolescents. Domestic violence, breakup of certain family politics, I would say, like the relationships within the family. The mother-father relationships, the parent-child relationships, how these relationships are sort of handled. This is what kind of cause these suicidal attempts among people, rather than an actual mental disorder. And also the fact that in our cultures we have this concept of lajja baya, if I'm to use shame and blame. Right? We as individuals, there we are taught to be shameful on certain things. And we have fear of being blamed if we do.
If you could give us an example.
For example, if you have an affair, especially maybe not in a urban setting, but in a rural setting, that is the end if you're like 16 or 17 and you're carrying on with a boy, that is not really acceptable.
Yes.
That is seen as some sort of
Shameful.
a taboo. Shameful. Yes. Shameful. And if you tend to kind of, and these children will tend to sort of keep it as a secret as long as they can. And also sexual education, sexual health, reproduction health.
Yes.
Like we hardly ever speak about these things. And these children, I mean, even in our education system, we would not be taught. And these students are totally unaware of this sexuality and reproduction health.
Yes.
So then they, with the age and all of that, if they try, I mean, they have affairs and they might be sexually active, and then they might result in teenage pregnancies, and then this whole like series of events would be seen in a shameful way, and they'll be blamed if they get kind of exposed to the society or the community at any level. So that itself is one of the main causes why a person would attempt to suicide or end life.
Okay, so what you're saying is this is not something that is prolonged. It's not depression that happens throughout the years. It's something that happens, an event that happens suddenly. And just to clarify, it's stresses that are brought on by basically your family and the surrounding environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of social pressure from family, from your school, maybe from your peers, maybe from your boyfriends or girlfriends, maybe. So these are the factors that usually lead to a attempt of suicide in a sociological point of view.
So in this scenario, from what I understand, like what psychiatrists say is that you have these symptoms, they're depressed, there's these things to look out for. What do you look out for in these cases?
That's the difficult part, because you really don't have any triggers or causes. You can't diagnose whether this person is suicidal and whether this person will attempt suicide in 1 week or in a month or whatever, because it's impulsive and it's spontaneous, right? And it's again to deal with the way your life is sort of portrayed or how it's developed.
So what are the preventive measures that like NGOs and other government bodies and other institutions in society, family included, what are the preventive methods that they actually have to sort of stop someone from committing suicide all of a sudden, from what I understand? The Ministry of Health have taken the initiative to sort of develop life skills program for adolescents, and also to have more mental health awareness programs. And also we are trying to, there has been a lot of things that has happened or have with ministry and everybody else included have been trying to sort of control the external environment. So you don't kind of address the cause of the person, whatever we have been doing so far. We haven't addressed the causes like poverty or all this emotional but these
baggage.
Are big issues that you're talking about.
Exactly. These are not actually big issues, because say a person can there are certain episodes where people have attempted suicide because the parent didn't allow the child to use a mobile phone.
But isn't there something fundamentally wrong in the society if a child actually tries to commit suicide for something like that?
Exactly. It's fundamentally wrong in the sense because that's the social structure. I mean, that is the way our society has been evolving for so many years.
So you're saying we've been socialized to look at suicide as an option.
Exactly, especially in the rural settings. Because it's also sort of like a learned behavior. Say in these families, you hardly can find a family who has not experienced an episode of suicide. Almost every family have seen someone attempt suicide and have gone
almost every family.
Yes, especially in the rural setting. Here my specialization is towards the north central province, so I'm targeting that area. So most of these people, most of the families have experienced attempts of suicide and suicide in their households, and so all of them kind of, even the young children or in the adolescents as well as the parents, each layer has some experience with suicide.
And you're saying this is common to any age group if it's each layer?
Yes, I mean for each of the layers,
Okay.
this suicide is an option. Attempting suicide is an option because it has become a sort of like a learned behavior. Like they've seen other people do it.
But what about the stigma that is attached to suicide? Because from what I understand and from the stories that I have heard, especially in a rural setting, if you say, oh, you try to commit suicide, then they think, oh, something is wrong with you, and the whole stigma of a mental disorder also comes into play there.
Yeah.
So how is it still an option if they also look at it as a stigma?
Stigma is a control, yes, but see, in these households, with all that stresses, I suppose at that moment, this is an impulsive act. At that moment, they really don't care. They don't think about the stigma. It's after the attempt, if they survive the attempt, that they will be thinking about the stigma.
So what you're saying is, now this is a little different from all the Western research that has come out as well. This is a different concept because they say you contemplate it, you think about it, you constantly think about how you're going to kill yourself, what are the methods that's available. So what you're saying here is, from a sociological perspective, it's sudden.
Exactly.
You get angry and you just do it, depending on what's available.
Yes.
So that's a completely different concept.
Yes, it is extremely different from the West. What happens in Sri Lanka?
Yes.
And we have a different. We call it actually. One of the researchers, very senior researchers, Jean Marisette, she calls this dialogue suicide.
Okay.
Because every attempt or every completed act of suicide was an attempt to communicate with another party, right? So it's a dialogue. Like you want something. See, for example, the mobile phone.
Yes.
The child wanted the mobile phone. The parents didn't allow the child to have a mobile phone.
Yes.
And then he drank poison. And then he survived it. The parents got him a mobile phone. So it's a way.
So there's a positive reinforcement.
Exactly.
Really.
There's a positive reinforcement.
But how do parents react to that? Like, how do they react to that? What is the other option other than buying a mobile phone?
Exactly. There is no other option. I mean, you don't want to lose your child.
Yeah.
And you would try to kind of find money and somehow buy him a mobile phone.
Yeah.
It's that storyline is similar to most cases because say if it's like a marriage or like a love affair or something, and the parents didn't agree to the affair, and one of the girl or the boy would take poison, and then ultimately the families would agree and marry them to get off.
Tanjali, we're running out of time, so I have one very important question to ask you with regard to, especially since you're talking about the suddenness of the desire to attempt suicide. What about the availability of the objects that you can use to commit suicide? How does that play a role in this entire concept?
Yes, especially looking at the rural setting, pesticides is the most available agent of attempted suicide.
Okay.
So there is research going on to kind of stop that or to control this access to pesticides through advocating safe storage devices for pesticides.
How do they act as a deterrent? Like, what is the difference between just having pesticides at home and a safe box?
Yeah, the idea behind this is that when you have a thought to commit suicide or to harm yourself, you straight away go and get the bottle and drink it.
Yeah.
You're angry and mostly if it's a male, they'll be drunk.
Yeah.
So if it's at your household, they will just take it. So the idea is to sort of delay that process and keep the pesticides away from the household in the fields. So that, and to kind of make it not easy access, like have a child's lock and a padlock and all of that in the device, so that by the time you walk to the field and open the box, you'll change your mind and you would be a little bit more rational to say.